In November 1923, a loaf of bread in Berlin cost 200 billion marks. A month earlier it had cost 5 billion. A year earlier, 200 marks. A German professor who had saved his entire career had enough money, by November 1923, to buy a single metro ticket. The hyperinflation had a specific origin. Germany had financed the First World War entirely through debt, expecting victory to pay the bill. After defeat, the Treaty of Versailles imposed reparations of 132 billion gold marks, roughly 3 times Germany's entire national income. When Germany fell behind on reparations in January 1923, France and Belgium occupied the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland. The German government responded by printing money to pay striking workers in passive resistance, financing a general strike through the printing press. Workers received wages daily. Housewives rushed to spend money within hours of receiving it, before it lost further value. Prices were updated multiple times per day. The exchange rate collapsed from 4 marks per dollar in 1914 to 4 trillion marks per dollar by November 1923. The German central bank was printing banknotes so fast that the ink had not dried before they were handed out. Savings, bonds, and life insurance policies denominated in marks became worthless. The middle class, those who had saved rather than borrowed, was wiped out. Those who had borrowed in marks could pay off mortgages and loans with nearly worthless currency. A new word entered the economic vocabulary, hyperinflation, defined as monthly price increases exceeding 50%. Germany's peak monthly inflation in October 1923 was 29,000%. The experience would scar a generation and reshape political movements that would haunt Europe for decades. It would also permanently define how one nation, and through that nation, much of Europe, thought about the relationship between governments, central banks, and the value of money. The hyperinflation destroyed something more fundamental than wealth. It destroyed economic calculation itself. When prices change by the hour, businesses cannot plan. When a worker earns enough for a meal at 9 in the morning and enough for a coffee by afternoon, the market economy ceases to function. Inflation became self-fulfilling. As prices rose faster, people spent money faster to avoid further loss. As velocity accelerated, the money supply needed to expand to meet transactions. The central bank accommodated, which accelerated inflation further. There was no natural stopping point. The hyperinflation did not destroy all groups equally. Debtors, including the German state, benefited enormously. Creditors, savers, and fixed-income recipients were destroyed. This redistribution was so extreme and so visible that it generated deep social resentment against the Republic, the banks, and perceived beneficiaries. Wealthy Germans who held foreign currency, real estate, or physical commodities preserved their wealth. The middle class, holders of savings accounts, war bonds, pension entitlements, was devastated. They would not forget. The political consequences of this would unfold over the next decade. Germany's economy depended on imported raw materials. Hyperinflation meant that every import became astronomically expensive in mark terms. Industrial production collapsed not from lack of demand but from inability to purchase the inputs needed to produce anything. The international dimension made the crisis intractable. The reparations obligation was denominated in gold, not marks. Printing marks did not help Germany pay gold reparations, it simply destroyed domestic purchasing power while the foreign obligation remained unchanged. By mid-1923, the German economy had bifurcated. In cities, an exchange economy in foreign currency or barter had replaced the official mark economy. Workers were paid in bread, coal, or potatoes. The currency had ceased to function as a medium of exchange for practical purposes. On November 15, 1923, the day Hitler was arrested following the failed beer hall putsch, Germany introduced the Rentenmark. The new currency was backed not by gold, which Germany did not have, but by a symbolic lien on German land and industrial assets. The scheme was largely fictitious in its backing, but it worked. The Rentenmark worked because it was scarce. The government strictly limited the supply. For the first time in years, a mark could not be printed at will. Prices stabilized within weeks. The hyperinflation ended not through a gradual unwinding but through a credible break in expectations. The Dawes Plan of 1924, negotiated with American involvement, restructured Germany's reparations payments to a sustainable schedule and injected American capital into the German banking system. International legitimacy supported domestic monetary credibility. The Reichsbank's new president, Hjalmar Schacht, raised interest rates to extraordinary levels, creating a brief but severe credit crunch. Stabilization required pain. The question was whether concentrated pain now was preferable to distributed pain forever. Schacht chose the concentrated pain. The lesson was counterintuitive. In a hyperinflation, the cure is immediately deflationary. Once the printing stops and credibility is established, real economic activity can resume. The velocity of money slows, prices stabilize, and transactions return to the official economy. By 1924, German industrial production was recovering. By 1925, unemployment had fallen sharply. The stabilization proved that hyperinflations could end quickly once the monetary anchor was restored. The damage, however, was not quickly undone. The institutional lesson was incorporated into the post-war design of the German central bank. The Bundesbank was given statutory independence and a mandate focused on price stability above all other objectives. The law was written to make 1923 constitutionally impossible to repeat. The hyperinflation ended. Its consequences did not. The redistribution of wealth it had produced was permanent. The middle class that had been destroyed never fully recovered its economic and political confidence. German political culture was permanently marked. The experience created what economists now call hyperinflation aversion, a deep, institutional hostility to any monetary accommodation of fiscal deficits. Germany's resistance to ECB bond purchases in the 2010s traces directly to November 1923. Trauma this severe is transmitted across generations through institutions. The institutional lesson is now standard. Central bank independence is not a technical preference but a political safeguard. Monetary financing of government deficits can accelerate into dynamics that no institution can control once started. A direct causal line runs from the 1923 hyperinflation through the 1930 unemployment crisis to the 1933 Nazi seizure of power. Economics does not cause politics. But economic trauma creates the conditions in which political catastrophe becomes possible. The hyperinflation was not the only cause. It was a necessary one. The Rentenmark stabilization also taught that currency crises can end faster than they begin, if the monetary anchor is credibly re-established. The hyperinflation that took 3 years to destroy the German economy was ended in 3 weeks. Credibility, once lost, can be rebuilt. The damage it inflicts on its way out rarely is. What the world learned: central bank independence is a political safeguard, not an economic preference. The economic destruction of a middle class carries political consequences measured not in years but in decades. And the memory of monetary catastrophe, encoded in institutions, is one of history's most durable forces. The Reichsbank's failure demonstrated, at the most extreme scale in history, why central bank independence matters. The Federal Reserve, created after the Panic of 1907, Episode 3, faced its own test of independence just a decade later, and failed it, contributing to the catastrophe that followed. The patterns repeat. The faces change. The cost is always borne by those who had no say. Economic Crises Explained. 2026.